quick question to you. What does the Sartana films, Pale Rider, and High Plains Drifter all have in common? And no, Western is not the answer. The answer is they all have a supernatural element to them. In the case of High Plains Drifter, it is the vengeful spirit of the marshal, implied by Eastwood, not ever directly stated. In Pale Rider, it's far more obvious that it's a ghost of some kind come back from the dead. Again, implied. Sartana, he is a conjurer of cheap tricks and fun sleight of hand, but there's definitely more to him than just having a tiny gun that he can pull out of anything. The man appears in places he shouldn't be able to. The supernatural Western isn't technically a genre unto itself, but it should be. In many ways it is. You've probably heard of the game Hard West. I myself have mentioned Deadlands on this at least one or two occasions. And there's more than that. There's the movie Ravenous, which, again, while not explicitly supernatural or technically speaking a Western, but it's a Western in pretty much every way I define it. It's just kind of early as far as the timeline goes, is also in this category. And that's kind of the fun thing about most of this. Even the games, or settings, or films that are generally explicitly supernatural, and there's a whole bunch of questionable B-movies that fulfill this criteria for Westerns, it's generally not in your face. And even when it is, it's only in your face to the people involved. Very similarly to many monster movies or slasher films. But with Westerns, it's different. Because it's at its best when it leaves you, the audience, unsure of what you just saw. Tremors is about as overt as it gets, and that's questionably a Western. You can say it steals a bunch from Westerns. It does cinematography-wise, as well as in several other cases. But that goes too far. Pale Rider pretty much nails it right where I want it. Is he actually the dead man? Or is he just a guy who looks like him and really, really hates him? It's a good point. And I want to just chat about, as a general thing, of why they're awesome. And part of it is because they have a lot in common with Gothic horror. Now, if you know anything about Gothic horror, you know it's generally understated. It's not usually over the top. It's a ghost story. It's very much a pure, virginal, sometimes literally, sometimes not, person is in a horrifying situation, and then generally the evilness of whatever they are facing will tend to kill itself, or it will be destroyed through some other means. This is very true with ghost stories and some vampire stories. You could say Dracula is, in many respects, a Gothic horror. It is. It doesn't quite follow that the layout I gave you exactly, but it does generally, if you notice. Mina is a very virginal person. We don't know if she literally is, but Mina Harker is a pretty good person all around. Her friend, however, is shown to be a little more flighty, a little more risque. She's not a bad person, but she is not as upright and moral as Mina is. This is why she is the one who dies and gets turned into a vampire, and Mina only is cursed for a while before Dracula is stabbed. This is true for a lot of other of the era stories, and the Westerns definitely follow it. High Plains Drifter is quite perfect for this one. Everyone in town sucks. Everyone. Everyone in town is involved in some way or another with the conspiracy to have killed their marshal. So everyone is guilty. Even if the guilt is just being too much of a coward to stand up and say no. And as such, they are punished by the stranger. Now, if the stranger actually is the spirit of the marshal, or, as the original screenplay denoted, his brother come back for revenge, it doesn't really matter, does it? He is a supernatural force that wanders in, does whatever he wants, exerting all sorts of horrible punishments upon the people of the town, even if it is just constant levels of disrespect and just being an ass. They kind of deserve it. Because again, even Mordecai, lovable little Mordecai, is guilty of being a coward. But he also doesn't take anywhere near as much punishment as the others because he is only guilty of being a coward. And he makes up for it in the end. So he is absolved, whereas everyone else has to take much more of a beating. Pale Rider is, frankly, a spirit coming back for no one in the area other than our main villain. Sartana is more of just a wild ride of strangeness because that's sort of the entire point. Ravenous, however. Ravenous. Oh, that's a beautiful movie. It is a movie I would change absolutely nothing about. A man, during the Spanish-American War, is a coward, and he hides under a pile of bodies. And under that pile of bodies, blood drips into his face and on his mouth. And he ingests it. From there, you see a man's slow mental decline as he becomes more and more obsessed with eating people. He has become a Wendigo. Now, this movie walks a line. Is it real or is it not? It seems to be, in many respects. It seems as if it is doing something. There are overt sides to this. Another character, it just has embraced it. And it does seem to give some level of regeneration or vitality. But of course, that could just be all mental. That's the point. It doesn't get crazy. It doesn't get insane. It doesn't turn into an effects heavy in, Lollapalooza. The end fight is a brutal, horrible knife fight that has no glamour, no glory. It's just two men slowly trying to kill each other for about 2 minutes. And it looks like it. Which is what the director wanted. She wanted it to look like an actual knife fight. And I've never seen an actual knife fight, but it's slow and it's not pretty. And it's a fabulous movie because it's not in your face. If it was in your face, it could still be fun. But it wouldn't have this slow, brooding presence. And I know everyone uses brooding all the time, but that's what it's doing. It's brooding. It's just letting it sit there, and it's like, you know it's there, but it's not overt. And that's what the Western does the best. Because even when it's not supernatural, pick a Western. Pick a really good classic Western. Generally, the revenge stories fit the supernatural one the best, because that's they have a lot in line with one another. The reason it works is because we're just taking what already worked, the classic revenge story, and we're adding more to it. It's a ghost story. Just like they would have told out there. And honestly, the West is creepy. Let's be honest. You see some of those shots. High Plains Drifter is perfect. It's just this giant... I don't want to call it a salt flat, because I don't think it's a salt flat, but you know what I mean. It's this giant flat of nothing. It's just empty nothingness for miles. Fistful of Dollars. No. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the one that's got it. There's that crazy desert sequence where they're just going through the desert. And there's just... nothing. It's just two guys stumbling through the desert. Well, one's stumbling, one's riding a horse with an umbrella. And it's miserable. I think it's called The Big Silence. Or The Silence. Takes place up in the mountains. Covered in snow. Hateful Eight. Cabin Fever movie. The West already does horror. It's just, we don't really call it that. It's more of a thriller or a character drama. But we got 8 people stuck in a cabin and pretty much everyone hates each other. Isn't that just a horror movie? We just don't have the killer outside. It's a whole movie about paranoia. So the supernatural element just makes it more fun, because now we're just turning the dial just a little bit more. It's never too much. Don't get it overt. Don't go crazy. Or if you do go crazy, then go crazy. Like, go the whole 9 yards. Go be priest. Okay? Be a pseudo-Western. It's a Western. It's just, we've gone full fantasy or sci-fi on it. We all see it. We see the nod. We appreciate it. But if you're gonna go, go. Don't do a halfway point. As fun as Cowboys and Aliens was, it's ultimately a fairly forgettable movie. An enjoyable popcorn flick, but it doesn't last. It's not High Plains Drifter. Being fair, High Plains Drifter is a very good movie, so, you know, it's okay to not be High Plains Drifter. Sometimes it's okay to just be the popcorn flick. But if you want to do a supernatural western, and please do so, I beg of you, I would love more of these. Keep it low-key. Keep it gothic. Because it is of a time with the gothic horror. But it's America's gothic horror. Because gothic horror, despite us having one of the best gothic horror authors of all time, Edgar Allan Poe, it's still European. You know, in that exceedingly broad statement there, because there's a lot of that. But you know what I mean. It's civilized. It's taking place in a haunted manner. You're in the country, but you're not in the middle of nowhere. There is people. There's a town nearby. There's other people to interact with. Whereas a supernatural western, even if you go full, whole hog on it, and we're going to see it and everything, the only people who are going to see the monster or the ghost or the vengeful spirit or whatever it is you're dealing with are you and the 4 people with you. And when you leave, no one's going to believe you. There's a legend about it being haunted and terrifying, but that's all there ever will be. It's never going to be anything else. That's why it's scary. And that's why it works. That's why it should be subtle. Because it's best when it's subtle. Don't over-season. Now, I hope you appreciate my weird-ass ramble here. It's been a bad couple of months. But I decided to sit down and watch High Plains Drifter, and I remember how much I adore the subtly supernatural westerns, and there just aren't enough of them. So I figured I would impart some of my love to you guys with a weird rant. But anyway, hope you all have a lovely Halloween. Stay safe out there. Don't get too drunk. Don't get too high on sugar. Peace out, everybody.